Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to Atari A to Z Flashback, a series of explorations of the 150 games that make up Atari Flashback Classics for Nintendo Switch. Today's game is Radar Lock. This was a 1989 release from Atari, developed by Doug Neubauer, the man behind the original Star Raiders for the Atari 8-bit, and its excellent follow-up for Atari 2600, Solaris, which you may have seen on the Evercade A to Z series. Radar Lock was an attempt to provide an experience vaguely similar to Sega's Afterburner, which came out in 1987. Now obviously this was a bit of a big ask on most home computers at the time, let alone the Atari 2600, so a few compromises had to be made. But this is quite an interesting game in that it's an early example of a game engine being reused for two different games. It's heavily based on Neubauer's previous game Solaris, but the actual gameplay is quite different, even if it resembles Solaris on a sort of visual perspective. Now, while the game may have initially been intended as an Afterburner clone, modern retro enthusiasts are pretty enthusiastic about this, as enthusiasts tend to be, and people tend to praise this for the added depth to its gameplay over and above what Afterburner offers. So it's definitely a unique experience. So let's go play Radar Lock.
Okay, here we are once again with Atari Flashback Classics, and today it's time for Radar Lock. Let's have a look at the manual. We've got a late era 1989 manual for a 2600 game here. So you see it's a very different look and feel to the older style Atari 2600 manuals. Less colourful, but probably more detailed. Okay, enemy jet at 12 o'clock. You're locked in fight to the death air combat with the enemy. You may be outnumbered. Somehow you've been separated from your buddies. How convenient. But this is far from your first mission. You've been flying your trusty little Delta Wing fighter for more months than you care to remember. Suddenly, you sight an enemy interceptor at 12 o'clock. These babies are a piece of cake. You sneak up from behind and zap it with a few rounds from your machine gun. Just when you're feeling a little cocky from your last successful hit, an enemy bomber appears out of nowhere. This one's not so easy. Not only is its tail gunner an expert shot, but the bomber is surrounded by a fleet of escorters, and you can't even get at it with your guided missiles. It's going to take all of your expertise along with your arsenal of ammunition, proximity missiles, and guided missiles just to stay alive. Any minute you could be sabotaged by a cagey patroller or the unsuspecting victim of a sneaky stealth fighter. Prepare for the dogfight of your life. It's going to be a killer. Okay. So, this is, I hesitate to call it a flight sim. It's a shoot 'em up basically. It's quite similar to Solaris, as we said in the intro, because it's based on the same engine, but rather than being space combat, it's air-to-air combat. So, the object of each of the game is to use your state-of-the-art Delta Wing fighter to defeat the enemy fleet in air combat. Your fighter plane is equipped with guided missiles, proximity missiles, and rapid-fire machine guns. The game consists of 5 missions. So, controlling your fighter. The original 2600 game made use of 2 controllers, so you needed 2 joysticks plugged in to play this game. Thankfully, this version here in Atari Flashback Classics maps all the functions of the second joystick onto just other buttons on the controller. So this is much easier. This is much easier to play in this version than it was on the original Atari 2600. I love the fact that they try and say that this has a 2-player mode. So their take on 2-player mode is one player fires the plane and the other player has the other controller and chooses weapons. Lucky them. Anyway, so yeah, this is just information on the weapons that you've got. So we've got guided missiles. Primary function of guided missiles is to destroy enemy bombers. When an enemy jet is within range, a missile lock radar will turn bright blue and you'll hear a beeping tone. Steer your jet until the locked on enemy jet is in the crosshairs. Missile lock radar will then turn deep red and you'll hear a steady tone. Fire missile immediately. Proximity missiles, you get them in mission 3, 4 and 5. Press the fire button to launch the missile, release the fire button to detonate it. When you detonate the missile, all visible enemy jets other than bombers will be destroyed. Do not release the fire button too soon or you'll risk detonating the missile too close to your own jet and destroying it. Okay. Alright, I'm on it. Let me just check the controls first. So, controls up, down, left, right, fire, obviously. B for guided missiles, X for machine gun, and Y for proximity missiles. Okay, I think I got it. Let's give it a try. 1 player. Two-player, all weapons on second controller. Oh, I see. Okay, so it is actually a slightly different mode. So you can't switch to your machine gun, or you can't use your machine gun in that mode, or something like that. I don't know. It's still a bit dumb. Anyway, game resets, and off we go. And if you played Solaris, this launch sequence will be very familiar. Right, so here we are. Here are some enemy planes. Let's shoot them down. So I'm just using my guns for now because, frankly, these guys aren't really a threat. And so all we really need to do is just get them sort of slightly above where your guns are firing and hit them. And then you're all good. Not sure how many we have to kill. Hello? Anyone? Oh. Guess you're the last one then. Alright, so once you have done all that, you then have to track down the refueling vessel. Don't know what's happened to the sound. But, yeah, I don't really know what's going on there. So, we should be able to thrust to accelerate. Is that changing our speed? I can't really tell with no sound effects. I think we need to line up that thing on the radar in the middle and head towards it. But nothing really seems to be happening. We don't seem to be getting any closer to it. Have I made some sort of terrible mistake somewhere? It's entirely possible. And now I'm running out of fuel. Okay, this is not going brilliantly. I won't lie. I'm gonna... Bear with me. Just gonna check those controls. Thrust. L. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna start again, because I think something's gone terribly wrong somewhere. Let's try again. Right. Let us try again. So if you haven't figured it out, the little thing in the bottom right with the flashing dots, that is your radar. Which shows you where the enemy planes are in relation to you. And that allows you to track them down. And then the thing in the middle, that is the missile lock radar it's talking about. It changes colours depending on whether you are actually locked onto them or not. Right, nearly done, I think. Oh no, there's some more coming in. There he is. It's actually a surprisingly decent sense of 3D in this game. In that sort of things will actually fly past you and that sort of thing. Again, we lose the sound effects here. And pressing L to thrust doesn't seem to do very much. And the thing on the radar doesn't appear to be approaching at all. Am I missing something? I feel like I'm missing something here. No. There's a bit about refueling. At the end of each mission, you must refuel in flight. Use the left controller's fire button to control your speed during the in-flight refueling sequence. Hold down the button to accelerate and release the button to return to normal flying speed. Using the long-range radar and missile lock, fly to the fuel tanker. When you're close to it, the tanker will lower its fuel hose. Once the nose of your jet is locked into the fuel hose, your mission is complete. Definitely missing something somewhere. I'm going to reassign that thrust control because it doesn't seem to be working. I'm going to set that on left trigger instead. And that should allow us to get closer. So, but, you know, it's kind of hard to figure out if I'm actually accelerating when there's no sort of feedback. Right, so I'm below the thing. Now I'm above the thing. So I need to go down a little bit. Down a tiny bit more. Up a bit. Right a bit. Too much right. Running out of fuel. Good. This game just doesn't work. I mean, I'm doing what it says, aren't I? I just don't seem to be able to get any closer to the refueling thing. I'm sure I've played this before and it worked properly though. So I don't really know what I'm doing wrong here. Well, there goes my plane. Alright, let's take off again. Do we have to do that same mission again now, or will it actually move us on to the next mission? We have to do the same bloody thing again, don't we? Oh no, only had to destroy 2 things that time. Right. Where is it? So it's obviously simulating some sort of altitude here, because you can be above and below it. But it's not actually letting us get any closer to the tanker, which is a problem. Because it means we can never reach it, and that means we can never finish the mission. Oh dear. Right, reset the whole thing. Start again. Oh, right. That's because, inexplicably, it is remapped thrust to the fire button instead of the thrust button. Right. Suddenly, everything makes more sense. And I apologise for wasting so much of your time up until this point. But you know, that's not obvious. That's dodgy design. I mean, I can kind of understand why they did that, because normally you don't need to use the thrust button that much during combat. But it's the main mechanic during the refueling process, so I can understand why they remap it to the main fire button. But also, that's very counterintuitive. Right. Let's get this right this time. So there it is, just sort of in the middle. Getting a bit closer, keep an eye on the radar on the bottom right to see when we're close. Here it comes. So ease in gently. A little bit closer. How close do we need to be? That seems too close. Down a bit. Give me your fuel hose. Oh, there it is. Done it! At last! Only took 20 minutes. And then we get a bonus for our remaining missiles. And then, for some reason, we had to refuel in mid-air before we landed and then take off again. So we're now on mission 2. Which should make life a little bit more difficult for us. Yes, you can see that we're actually being shot at this time. I believe we'll start seeing bombers in this mission as well. Come on, come here. Alright, next please. I guess there's still enemies somewhere. We need to go to missiles. I can't turn tightly enough to... Turn the other way, will that work? Give it some welly, as they say. Right, come here. Come here. Down. I believe these are the escorters. Oh no, maybe these pink ones are the escorters. Hard to tell. That it? Or is there more? There appears to be more. Where are you? That radar is not super helpful. I guess the yellow ones are the bombers then? Maybe? Uh-oh. Getting low on fuel. Oops. Death to me. Last life. Whoops. And that is that. Okay, right. Once we got our head around that, that does make a bit more sense. I'm going to have a look at the manual, though, because I want to say that it doesn't tell you that in the manual, or maybe I just didn't read it properly. Hold down the button to accelerate, and release the button to return to normal flow. And I said, I guess it does tell you, but it's a bit ambiguous. Well, anyway, we figured it out in the end. I guess I can only apologise for wasting your time at the beginning of that mission that we did repeatedly, but just goes to show how important intuitive controls and a good manual are. But anyway, there's Radar Lock. A fun game. Not as good as Solaris by any means, but decent. Especially when you consider this was 1989 on the Atari 2600. The poor thing was on its last legs by this point. And for there to still be interesting, competent games coming out for it is quite remarkable when you think about it, really. So, yeah. Well. Embarrassing. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.